Tyler, I know you and Zach both were Rachel's guys. What are your thoughts on Zach? I know you didn't really like him at the beginning, and no, but what,
I
like, you know,
I'm
you
like,
do
what?
have,
Tyler likes everybody.
but you do have a different relationship with, you know, somebody that you're competing with for the same woman. What was your relationship like with Zach?
Oh, yeah. I mean, ultimately, when we broke off, when we had the Rachel's guys, you had the Gabby guys, like you get so much closer. And one of the cool things was we had so much, like I say this all the time, we all had so much respect for each other. And knowing ultimately that one of us was going to end up with Rachel, if it wasn't going to be me, I'm hoping that it's going to be somebody who's going to treat her right. And I think ultimately Zach was one of those guys that I was just like, he is literally a stand-up guy all around, like total sweetheart, would do anything. And just the way he speaks and everything, he's a very smart guy. He's quirky, which I thought was like, I mean, he's this big guy and he's quirky and you're just like, oh my gosh, he's hilarious and in every way possible. And, you know, when it was my time to go with Rachel, that's when I realized I was just like, all right, it's either going to be Tino, Avon, or Zach. And at the time I was just like, I knew, you know, Zach was one of those guys that ultimately would be a great fit for Rachel at the end of the day, just because of who he was. And we learned so much about each other. And one big thing that I wish they aired, but they never had a chance to, and Nate will remember this too, is when we were all sitting down on the couch together and we had a full-on wine night with the guys. And when you start drinking wine, you get into your feelings and everything. And we start talking about like why we're here. And just so many people had so many things to talk about. And one thing, I don't think Zach will mind this, but one thing that Zach talked about is, he used to be a college football player. And during the time, he was like, what was he, like 300 some pounds, he was telling us. Because he was an offensive lineman, I'm pretty sure. And, he was just talking about, one of the biggest issues he had was, loving himself. And he knew that in order to give that love to somebody else, he ultimately had to love himself. And he was able to get to that point. And that's why it took him so long to really put himself out there. So just seeing him be vulnerable too, it's kind of just like such a big guy like that, able to do that and just express, who he is and learning so much more about him. Him as the Bachelor, I think it's a perfect fit. I think he's ready. I think that, ultimately he's just a stand-up guy. And yeah, I had a great relationship with him. And even to this day, like basically New Year's, he reached out to me and he says, hey, just checking in. I hope you and your family and everyone's doing great. Like, that's just who he is.